Hi, Dr. CJ with the second video in the series. This one we revisit cognitive load theory, but we're going to focus in on the two biggies, intrinsic load and extrinsic load. And we won't be talking about germane load because that's something for further on down the line, where I'm more interested in improving your in-classroom instruction, especially with the EMI program. Now, intrinsic load, as we know, we can't really change very much. I've brought a friend with me to give you an example of just how hard intrinsic load is sometimes to overcome. This is Mrs. Clark. Hi, how's it going? I brought her along just to show you an example of how difficult intrinsic load can be. What is intrinsic load? Well, intrinsic load is the content of the material. Yeah, okay, so tell me about it. Well, let's see. Can you add 2 plus 2? Sure, it's 4. Yeah? Can you do differential equations? What? Look at my brain. Look at your brain? I can't look at your brain. Look at my skull! I can't learn that stuff! Oh, that's true. Probably very difficult for Mrs. Cluck to learn differential equations. But what about the color of seeds? Yeah, I can do that. That's no problem. Alright, so there's a silly example of just how hard we have to overcome some of these things. You wouldn't expect Mrs. Cluck to understand differential equations, and you sure wouldn't expect your freshmen to understand advanced quantum mechanics or PCAM or something like that. We can't change that as instructors, but we can break it up. If we break it into smaller chunks and then we present that to our students in a manageable way, we can allow them to learn. Let me give you another example. When we have toddlers and we first start feeding them solid food, we don't give them a steak and say, here, gnaw on this, little junior. No, we don't do that. We cut the steak up into little tiny pieces, and we sometimes even chew it a little bit and give it to them like a baby bird. But what we do is we give it to them in a small chunk. That you can do. That doesn't change the content, but it does change the extrinsic load, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. Intrinsic load has to do with all how we present, how fast we present, how clearly we present, and in EMI, how effectively our students understand. Now, I brought another friend just so you can understand this concept. This is grandfather tree. What are you doing? I'm from Hungary, my family is, and I brought grandfather tree with me when I came over. What are you talking about? I am tree, I know all these things. Grandfather tree, would you tell the class all about ecology? Sure, I can do this total ecology. They can't understand you. What? I have an accent. What is wrong with these things? You see, Grandfather Tree has an accent, and nobody can understand him. What? I can understand. I know trees. I know I'm an expert on trees. Yes, you are, but you're not an expert at communicating with the language of English. No, it's not native language. Okay. Grandfather Tree brings up the second part, about intrinsic load. Because we're talking about EMI, as I'm a native speaker from Ohio, which is a pretty flat accent, most people will tell you it's one of the easiest places to go and listen to English. But Grandfather Tree is not. He's from Hungary and he's his second language. Many of our professors are second language learners, or even if they do speak English in their country, they have a thick accent that is difficult to understand. Perfect examples, when I was in the UK as a postdoc, I couldn't understand the Scottish people, and it was very embarrassing for me because I'm a native speaker, right? But the Scottish accent is very, very difficult. Extrinsic load is the thing that we can, as professors, reduce. And by doing that, we allow them to use that working memory and those few resources they have in taking in the information, processing, that's what germane load's about, and moving that into long-term storage and connecting it and building a neural nets. So basically, in a nutshell, intrinsic load we can't really do anything about except for make it smaller in chunks. The big focus is on extrinsic load, speed, clarity, how you present it in the form of either a PowerPoint or notes ahead of time. Let them review, let them become familiar. Asking questions to groups as opposed to individuals, because we know that our students are terrified to answer questions. But as I've learned, and I have a record to prove here at Chengha, that teaching in groups is very, very effective. I got paper on it, and I had really good ratings, 4.9 on all my classes. And I use small case studies and group discussion all the time. And the students loved it on their feedback. They would give it to me every week. So remember, reduce your extrinsic load. Don't worry about intrinsic load. We'll do the best we can. Thank you.